During the 1990s, theme restaurants were everywhere. You could dine in Hollywood, a rainforest, or even rock out, but the largest of them all opened in New York City's Times Square, a restaurant where you could board a shuttle to visit Mars, dining on intergalactic food or cosmic drinks, while Martians roamed around telling you about their history. Mars 2112 was the most immersive themed dine-in ever seen when it opened in 1998, only to eventually struggle for years facing multiple bankruptcies and closing forever.
This is Mars TV Newsroom, up to the second stories from around the galaxy.
During the 1980s, New York City had worked to turn a crime-filled, dangerous area of the city into a tourism mecca, known around the world with millions of people passing through it each year. Times Square today, one of the most recognizable landmarks in the city, began its transformation during the 1990s, from red light district to family friendly. With a huge crime crackdown, tax breaks, and the help of Disney and Michael Eisner renovating a historic theater, they would convince major companies to renovate areas of Times Square, and it was able to get rid of its seedy, dangerous reputation and become a place tourists from around the world had to see. On the corner of Broadway and 51st Street, during that transformation of the surrounding area, the Paramount Group, owner of Paramount Plaza, hired consultants during 1995 to study good uses for the building's retail plazas. The Paramount Plaza had sunken plazas with retail space that had already been redesigned multiple times for millions of dollars, as they had mostly been unsuccessful for the retail tenant. After the study was complete, the 3 sunken plazas of the Paramount building would find new tenants. A sandwich company, Equinox Fitness Club, and the Northern Plaza would be transformed into something never seen before. With Times Square coming together to be something different, Paramount wanted something bigger and to join in with its transformation, taking advantage of these new changes. They had spent 6 months studying what could work for the new kind of street traffic. An average of 24,000 people were passing the corner they had control of during the daytime each day, and one thing had come to the top of people's demands. They wanted good, affordable food. The first deal for the space was made in April 1998. At the time, themed dining was on the rise. People didn't want to just dine. They wanted to be transported to a different place while they were doing it. The first nearly complete deal for this space was a rainforest cafe. After many talks, Rainforest had pulled out of the deal eventually, as they had decided that it was just too big and it would be too expensive to operate. The space used would be nearly 35,000 square feet. After the Rainforest Cafe deal didn't work, another theme restaurant would not shy away from the huge space, and they would plan to open the largest themed restaurant ever made. The idea of Pascal Phelan, who began with the export of pre-packaged meat in Ireland, the Mars 2112 Group Ltd was registered in Ireland with a group of investors. He said that he came up with the idea for Mars 2112 after market research revealed that the public was losing its appetite for themed restaurants that served poor quality food and offered little to do while waiting for the table. He said one of his biggest inspirations was the Star Trek themed restaurant found in the Star Trek Experience in Las Vegas. No, not today. By the late 90s, food industry analysts stated that across the country, developers of theme restaurants were scaling back plans to build dinnertainment venues, and that only those that thrived were in tourist areas such as New York, Las Vegas, and Orlando. Mars 2112 would cost $15 million to build. hoping to give visitors the experience of dining on Mars in the year 2112, mixing food, fun, and fantasy in a highly themed 400-seat restaurant. Along with this, there will be a 150-seat Martian-themed microbrewery bar, gift shops, and live entertainment. The owners often said that their motto was that you come for the experience, and you would come back again for the food. Instead of the regular chicken fingers and burgers found everywhere at most theme restaurants, they would serve up a universal fusion cooking. They expected the average dinner tab to be under $20 per person, including drinks. They were also planning on bringing in people with a lot of experience to run the place, including Chief Executive Officer Stephen Micheletti, formerly of Rainforest Cafe, General Manager Michael Hochter, formerly of All Star Cafe in Times Square, and Executive Chef Stephen Goodwin, formerly with California Cafe. Theme restaurants really love to use the name cafe. While other restaurants like Planet Hollywood had been struggling, they touted that they had done market research to figure out where others had gone wrong, and that this would succeed. Those previous restaurants had 3 main issues: long waits to get in, food that was disappointing, and a general "so what" feeling by those who went in. The creators of Mars 2112 would do everything they could to avoid these problems. The restaurant itself would be designed by Daroff Design in Philadelphia. Daroff Design, an architectural firm, would design many restaurants and hotels in its decades-long history. Some you may know are the Disneyland Rainforest Cafe, Disney's Wild Horse Saloon, Universal's Cabana Bay Resort, and even Disney's Riverside Resort. Phelan had chosen Daroff to design it after he had heard her using the words immersive and interactive at a talk after searching throughout the world for a design firm. The whole design project took a year to complete, with some difficult design choices along the way. The space featured low-beamed ceilings that required several rounds of demolition that could only happen after office hours as not to disturb the tenants above. They worked hard on creating a cohesive story in the constraints of the space, and that was one of the biggest challenges. To plan out the story and design, Daroff used a storyboard similar to that used in the making of movies to plan the journey from start to finish and visualize the concept and actually imagine what dining on Mars could really be like. The most important aspect was making visitors believe that they were on Mars and losing themselves in the fantasy, and giving those visiting a chance to forget about everyday life for a little while, all while providing high-quality food and service. Another challenge was getting tourists to see you were down there in your sunken plaza hole, with limited options for signage. That was why a spaceship was placed outside that was 22 feet in diameter and 9 feet deep, and they hoped this would make it stand out on Broadway along with roaming aliens who would try and bring you in. Guests waiting for a table would be entertained with virtual reality games in the Cyber Street, with dozens of video games, pinball machines, and more as you waited for your shuttle to depart to Mars. A ramp led guests towards an Earth spaceport where you received your Martian visas for your voyage. Mars 2112 featured a $3 million 22-seat flying saucer transporter that began your journey to Mars at the restaurant. A 4-minute virtual ride through time and space led customers into the 32,000 square foot restaurant. The ride, a simulator, had on-screen a flight to Mars, while visitors sat in chairs that shook and vibrated to simulate they were really being transported to Mars, where their dining would begin. Some at the time stated it was exactly like a ride at Disney World. Upon arrival, visitors experienced Martian hot lava pools and lava eruptions, descending down the grand stairs into the dining area, which was designed to resemble a crater on Mars, which had now become inhabited. While navigating the rock fissure passage, travelers walked across a translucent bridge of pontoons floating over molten lava to arrive at the crater outlook. Down alongside a blue lava fountain into the crater's edge restaurant and dining room. As you dined, you were surrounded by red rock formations, Mercury xenon crystal trees, and other Martian surprises. The lava used inside was created by dough chemical and was edible just in case somebody put their finger in it to test. A focal point in the dining experience would be the window to Mars, which offered changing views of the Martian landscape. Friendly Martian drones are constantly working to protect visitors from harsh Martian conditions for a safe return to Earth. To return after the meal was complete, a Martian teleporter device teleported you back to Earth where you could explore the galactic retail store, the Duty Free Shop, which sold everything from space blankets to documentaries on Mars, and of course space ice cream.
This week, Martians enjoyed the very first clouds created by the Atmosphere Rebuilding Project. Granted, they were only light and fluffy, but scientists promised to come up with something much thicker and grayer early next year. Consultants from England on Earth have brought up samples of their famous rain for the Empress to choose from. Makes a change from all this boring sunshine.
Of course, we have to talk about the drinks and the food, often touted as better than any other themed restaurant. For drinks, the cyber cocktails arrived in abstract glasses you could keep if you paid for them. The Star Bar had some of the galaxy's finest concoctions, from the frozen lava drop to the Martian Pathfinder, and a selection of curated Mars-tinis like the Cosmopolitan. Next up for your main dinner, you had the appetizers, or your first contacts. You could choose from Calamari Crater, Elysium Fields, or Shrimp and Scallop Sputnik. Each came with a unique twist to make it feel alien. The entree options included Lobster Man from Mars, Maine Lobster, Rings of Saturn, or the Promethean Pork Chop. There was sirloin, short ribs, seafood stews, and more. There was of course also desserts, such as the Cosmic Chaos Cheesecake. For the little ones, they could choose from chicken fingers, crater burgers, or full moon pizzas. The menu was actually quite praised at opening, fit in for the theme, exciting, and yet not just the usual burgers you would find at other themed chain restaurants. Over the years, these would be modified and become a little less unique, but at the start they offered some great options. By the end of the restaurant's run, it was more just burgers and pizzas. Officially opened on September 14th, 1998, in a gala featuring astronauts Jim Lovell and Scott Carpenter, the Crystal Crater featured a 3-story crystal tree covered by a glass canopy that offered a view of the Martian heavens and the Earth below. One aspect the restaurant focused on was private parties, corporate events, and birthday parties. The Emperor's Chamber offered privacy with a quiet atmosphere for small groups if needed. Birthday packages included things like a meet and greet with a personal alien. Of course, one of the highlights for many was meeting those different Martians that roamed around the restaurant. The main stars being Captain Orion, Empress Gloriana, and Cutie Pie, or QTP. And you know me, I'm going to give you the full backstories for these 3 icons. First, Empress Gloriana.
It's kind of old. They fixed it once. There's another one which presumably is still being fixed. I haven't seen it for a while.
Lifeforms of all shapes and sizes regard Her Royal Highness, Empress Gloriana, ruler of Mars, as the queen of their hearts. This kind, gracious, and beautiful blue empress embraces her role as supreme host to all interplanetary travelers. She hopes you may feel as happy and at home at Mars 2112 as you do wherever in the universe you may live. Next, Captain Orion. Having proven his skill and bravery as the Imperial Guard on Mars, Captain Orion has been named the mighty protector of all Martians and visitors to the planet. His loyalty and dedication to Empress Gloriana inspire respect and discipline in his legion of Imperial Guards. Captain Orion's goal of universal peace included not only Mars, but extended to your home planet as well. Finally, we have QTP, or Cutie Pie to the Earthlings. This lovely being is one of the brightest stars in the Marks constellation Academy. QT makes friends as easily and eagerly as she loves maths and science equations. Her twinkling eyes, all 3 of them, and dazzling personality radiate universal love throughout Mars and all worlds.
Remember Chicago? I tried to visit once, but it was a little too windy to land. I see, you're being a bit cagey now. I think maybe someone has a crush on me and he's trying to hide it.
Now, you can't tell me they are not 3 legends. Your server, or space captain, would greet you with Babanu, the Martian Hello, and hand you a copy of Mars Today, carrying the menu and the latest Martian news and weather. The opening reviews were a hit. One place said, "Face it, Star Wars or Trekkie fans, you won't be alive when Earthlings inhabit the Red Planet, so this is the best way to experience it." Geez, quite the review. During its first full operating year in 1999, Mars 2112 made operating profits of nearly $500,000. It was described as adult entertainment that kids loved. A place that took you out of this world into another, with pretty good food that exceeded the themed restaurant food standard, depending on who you asked. The Mars 2112 company said they planned additional sites in Philadelphia, Washington, the Mall of America, and in Europe. They wanted to open 2 new sites alone in 1999, and they had an extensive rollout program planned. Everything to create this restaurant was funded from resources in Ireland, and the ability to grow would depend on raising funds in the USA, which was supposed to have been said to be easier to do than funding it from Europe, but they had difficulty finding US funders. A second location did open in Chicago in 2000 at the Woodfield Mall. The restaurant would be located in the former Pitt Movie Theater and be smaller than the original at 20,000 square feet. The Chicago location would unexpectedly close in November 2001, just a year after opening. When asked, the restaurant president, Mary Hanlon, said the restaurant might reopen, but it's working out matters that they could not discuss. Those matters were money. The original restaurant was struggling after the 9/11 attacks, and tourism and themed entertainment was down across the whole country. The second location had a huge startup cost, and it was not being recovered. During the early 2000s, Mars 2112 had got approval to be used as a nightclub to make extra money to stay afloat. For a short time, you could have a night out on Mars while artists like 50 Cent performed, and it was incredibly popular in the hip-hop scene, involved in feuds and shootings as well. During 2002, Mars 2112 filed for bankruptcy. An auction was held for some of the assets for the second Mars 2112. The one in Chicago would never reopen, and that Mars 2112 simulator at the second location was 9 months old and put up for sale for $650,000. They were unable at the time to pay the lease on the building to Paramount and cited inadequate customer and sales volumes in light of the tragic events of September 11, 2001. During this filing, Paramount filed an adversary proceeding seeking to prevent Mars 2112 from continuing to conduct late-night parties at the restaurant, and that the lease stated in the terms that it was only allowed for the operation of high-quality public sit-down restaurant use, with Paramount claiming the nightclub activities damaged its ability to maintain a Class A character of the building. After 2002, the restaurant was no longer allowed to operate certain nightclub activities or any events without approval, though eventually they would resume as one final effort to try and save the restaurant many years later. One such event at the nightclub became TV news when they denied Shaq entry for not meeting the dress code. You had to be dressed quite fancy to spend your night on Mars. Throughout the years, the restaurant was also in a dispute with Paramount over their failure to provide a cooling tower that would provide AC specifically to the restaurant, which had not been completed as agreed. Tensions between the restaurant and the owners of the building were high. Pascal Phelan was seen by the other directors to be using the bankruptcy protection to dilute their shareholdings and undermine their rights. And there was a significant breakdown of relations between all parties involved. Many original investors in Mars 2112 were unhappy they had been convinced to invest and now would lose it with the restaurant's crushing debts, which was now $500,000 behind on payments. Phelan had already been involved in legal battles with former partners from his Master Meats business and plagued by allegations of fraud that were later withdrawn due to a settlement, and he would eventually leave the company and move to South Africa, where he would later go on to found the Phelan Energy Group, providing solutions to South Africa's energy challenges with clean energy. Mars 2112 was placed under curatorship and would continue, over the following years slowly becoming less of a pristine, fun place to dine and slightly run down. struggling year by year to try and survive, and entering bankruptcy again and coming out of it in 2007, which Paramount thought to have dismissed. As more of the restaurant's areas became dilapidated, in 2010 the spaceship ride broke, and the restaurant began stating that it would no longer be offered. Instead, on the TV, they would now show a 4-minute educational movie based on travel from Earth to Mars. You could also just opt not to watch this new movie and go straight into the restaurant, which now charged $2 to enter the bar alone. The cheap happy hour drinks kept the place going until 2012, exactly 100 years before the restaurant's Mars set-in. Mars 2112 wouldn't make it to 2112 to see if they had correctly predicted what dining on Mars would feel like. It would only make it to 2012. A 14-year run that placed it as a staple restaurant in the middle of Times Square. It was announced in January 2012 that the restaurant's assets would be sold off. The space had been sold to a broker to convert it back to retail. Potentially, they hoped for an Apple store. Around 100 people attended the Mars 2112 auction after it closed forever, many of them being arcade game enthusiasts hoping to get offerings from the Cyber Street game room. The night before the auction, however, many of the choice games were repossessed by vendors with leases or loans on them, and many collectors missed out. Most of them were already run down and just not working anyway. Slowly, the theming from the restaurant was all removed, and the space was eventually developed with the plaza being enclosed and a glass box placed over the entrance. No spaceships or aliens left in sight. Apple would never come, and the space of the former restaurant would sit empty and abandoned for years.
I'm Cheryl Ann Belkin, and I work at Mars 2112. I am the Empress of Mars. I'm Empress Gloriana. That means that I go around to the patrons here, and in character, I welcome them to Mars and to the restaurant, and I act like a gracious hostess because it's my planet and I invited them.
Since closing in 2012, Mars 2112 faded into a distant memory, a place ahead of its time that took immersion to the next level before slowly dying due to a loss of interest, world events, and lack of funds after years of struggling to stay afloat. For the many people who visited over its existence, the out-of-this-world experience never left them. People used it for an ice-breaking first date, a family party, or just to escape reality. Mars 2112 was the biggest themed restaurant of the ball, and for many, their favorite. The themed restaurant boom of the 1990s would eventually die out, but for those who went there, Mars 2112 was never forgotten and deemed ahead of its time. Today, once again, restaurants have begun attempting to offer something similar, with Epcot's Space 220 being an example of transporting you into space to dine. I mean, even the name is a copy of the original. This version, though, doesn't even have the roaming aliens, so it's 100% not as cool. Over the years, no immersive restaurant ever met the scale, scope, and pure fun of being transported to Mars to eat themed cocktails, slightly average food, and interact with space aliens. That was a staple of the 1990s and early 2000s, a decade where restaurants would pay good money to just be fun. Everything always comes back around, and I hope it isn't too long until we see a new themed restaurant boom. By 2112, we may truly be dining on Mars. Until then, though, the world needs Empress Gloriana, Captain Orion, and Cutie Pie more than ever.
Or farewell, as you say on Earth.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Expedition Restaurants. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to join the expedition. Follow us on social media for updates on upcoming episodes, and a special thank you to our Patreons for supporting the channel. We will see you next time.
That was really stupid.